Welcome to the channel, welcome to Banter in the Box, and it's the final part of our annual Meet the Managers series. This is Meet the Managers Part 4. In this week's Banter in the Box, we're going to give you a Manager of the Season update, but before then, we're going to meet the final 5 managers in this season's competition. We've already met the 15 managers that probably are not going to win the league. Today we're going to meet the 5 managers who the likely champion will come from. First up, ranked the 5th best manager in the Family Fantasy Football League, none other than a true FFFL legend, Mark Benwell, manager of Benny United, as one of only 5 managers to compete in every single season of the Family Fantasy Football League. A 2 times FFFL League winner. In fact, he won the very first 2 seasons of the Family Fantasy Football League in 1996 and 1997. He did the double in 1997, the first manager to do the double, and he won the cup a second time in 2011. And he's had a fair few minor honours, the most weekly wins in 1996, 2002, 2011, 2013. The highest weekly total in 1996, 2002, 2013 and 2019. And he was the manager of the season in 2020 and 2022. He became the first manager ever to win the manager of the season twice. Sarah Goodwin has subsequently equalled that record. But in all those 31 seasons in the Family Fantasy Football League, he's only picked up 4 Manager of the Month awards. Last time Mark was top, the 5th of September 2020, almost 5 years. He does hold an FFFL record. He's one of only 3 managers to ever retain the Family Fantasy Football League title. He became the first manager to do it in 1997. And he holds the record for the most ever points scored in a single week. He got 224 points in the last game week of the season back in 2019. Now, all of these top 5 managers are benefiting from the fact that so many big guns were relegated last season. We lost the number 1 rated manager for the last quarter of a century, Steve Holmes, who's a 4 times FFFL champion. We lost Neil Hatch, who holds the record for the most FFFL titles with 5, and we lost a 3 times FFFL champion in Wayne Robinson. The fact that those 3, along with others, were relegated has lifted some people up those league rankings, and Mark is one of those people. Fair to say he's desperate to get back to those glory days in the late 90s when he was the number 1 rated manager in the Family Fantasy Football League. Cynics in the Family Fantasy Football League community have said that the reason Mark pushed for a return to what he called the closeness of those early seasons was really a guise just to get the big guns like Steve and Neil, his brothers, kicked out of the Family Fantasy Football League. I don't know if that's true, but what I will say is, of the 20 managers in the Family Fantasy Football League this season, 18 of them attended the end of season presentation awards last season, including the top 2 in the league. And it was a bit special, I have to say. The closeness did return, and long may it continue. And the current FFFL champion, Greece Lightning's Alexi Lagos, said to me yesterday that he thinks that Mark could be the champion this year. He thinks that he's going to be resurrected in this smaller FFFL format, well, smaller format for a number of years, and will possibly mount a title challenge. Time will tell. If anyone can do it, Benny can do it. Next up, the 4th best manager in the Family Fantasy Football League, none other than Keith Simons, manager of Legends 23. And like many managers this season, Keith is achieving Veterans FFFL status, this being his 10th season. No major honours in the previous 9 seasons, but he has had the most weekly wins on 3 occasions, 2018, 2023 and 2025. He got the highest weekly total in 2023, And in his previous 9 seasons, he's picked up 6 Manager of the Month awards, which is pretty good going. His highest league finish was 4th on 2 occasions, 2021 and last season, what he would give to break into that top 3. His best league position, 3rd, back on the 15th of April 2021. Keith has never been in the top 2 in the league, but he's always in and around that title pack. Tends to fade towards the end of the season, but maybe this year he can do it. Next up, the 3rd best manager in the Family Fantasy Football League, and it's a bit of a controversial one. Niall Ponsford, manager of the Big Postacoglu, although I suspect that team name may change this season now that Spurs sacked Ange Postecoglou. This will be Niall's 4th season in the Family Fantasy Football League, and the reason this is controversial is Niall is undoubtedly a one-season wonder. No honours at all in his previous 3 seasons, no Manager of the Month awards, but he did finish runner-up in his debut season, and he's still kind of living on that. But he's going to need to back it up sooner or later, or he'll tumble down the rankings. His best league position, well, he was top on the 8th of September 2023, but his last season he only finished 9th, the season before that 11th, so Niall needs to step up if he wants to continue to be considered one of the big hitters in the Family Fantasy Football League. He did finish 2nd in the Manager of the Season table, so he does have £10 million of free tactical gambits to use this season, and as the Mad Hatter and Alexi mentioned at the end of season presentation awards, that could make him a threat this season. And talking of the Mad Hatter, the 2nd best manager in the Family Fantasy Football League is indeed the Mad Hatter, manager of the Creed Bratton Society. 8 previous seasons in the Family Fantasy Football League. This is his 9th season, and the previous 8 seasons have been very good. He was the Family Fantasy Football League champion in 2024 and was, goal difference away from retaining his title last season in the closest ever title race in Family Fantasy Football League history. Creed Bratton Society finished level on points with Grease Lightning. Same number of weekly wins, so he lost the title because he scored less goals than Grease Lightning. He has been in 8 seasons a cup winner on 3 occasions, 2019 and 2020, and last season the blow of missing out on the title on goal difference was eased by the fact that he lifted the Family Fantasy Football League Cup, made even sweeter by the fact that he beat Alexi Lagos in the cup final, Alexi who picked him to the title. Minor honours, there's been many. He was the Golden Boot winner in 2019 and 2024, the Silver Boot winner, most assists in 2024 and last season. He got the most weekly wins back in 2019, and he's had 8 Manager of the Month awards in his 8 previous seasons, averaging 1 Manager of the Month award a season. That is good going. Last time he was top, well, it wasn't that long ago, 2nd of May 2025, he was top of the league, and then Alexi snatched it from him right at the end. Holds an FFFL record, scored the most goals in a season in 2019, 134 goals. That's never been beaten. He's also the only person in history to retain the Family Fantasy Football League Cup in 2020. And the Mad Hatter is one of only 3 managers to have lifted the cup on 3 occasions. He also holds the record, not listed here, but worth mentioning, for travelling the furthest distance to attend an end-of-season presentation awards. He came all the way from Norway last season to attend the end-of-season presentation awards, probably because he thought he was going to be picking up a League and Cup double, but it ended up being just the cup. But it was great to see him, and I'm hoping it's going to be an annual tradition. But the number one rated manager in the Family Fantasy Football League, now in the 30-year history of the Family Fantasy Football League, we've only had 3 managers rated the number one manager. The first number one rated manager was Mark Benwell, who won the first 2 league titles. He lost the number one rating to Wayne Robinson, who was relegated last season. Wayne held it for a few years, and then Steve Holmes, who was relegated last season, took over as the number one rated manager in the early 2000s, and he held on to it till he was relegated at the end of last season. And a new number one rated manager emerged in the form of Alexi Lagos, manager of Greece Lightning. 14th season in the Family Fantasy Football League, and the honours are pretty good. He's been a 3 times FFFL champion in 2014, 2021 and 2025. Only one other current Family Fantasy Football League manager has won the league that many times. Yours truly. Minor honours. Well, he was a Golden Boot winner in 2016, 2021, 2023, and crucially, last season, because that Golden Boot meant he won the league title over the Creed Bratton Society. He got the most weekly wins in 2016 and 2021, the highest weekly total in 2014, and Alexi has picked up 9 Manager of the Month awards. And of the current managers, it's not the outright record, but of the current managers, no one has won more Manager of the Month awards than Alexi. Does hold an FFFL record for the most weekly wins in a season. In 2021, when he won the league, he got 9 weekly wins. No one's ever got that many weekly wins in a season. Now, Alexi has just become a dad for the first time to Dimmy Lagos, and there is some people saying, well, that's all those sleepless nights, that's going to mean he's off his game. That will be a chink in his armour that will give everybody else a chance. But I can tell you that when Alexi is up at night with young Dimitrios, what does he do with his time? Well, he studies the Family Fantasy Football League. So maybe those sleepless nights are going to play to his advantage. Time will tell. Now, who the fuck is that? It was worth 2 Manager of the Season points if you could tell me which current Family Fantasy Football League manager was pictured there, and if you could tell me which part of the body, you'd earn a bonus point. Sarah Goodwin, Manager of the Season for the last 2 seasons, had a guess. She thought that it was Clockhouse Rangers manager George Moody. I'm afraid that is an incorrect guess, Sarah. But the good news is you're the only one playing this game. You're possibly the only one watching these Banter in the Boxes. So because you're the only one that had a guess, you get a Manager of the Season point by default, which means the current Manager of the Season table, or the top of it, looks like this. Sarah Goodwin already has a 3-point lead over the chasing pack. She's been the Manager of the Season for the last 2 years. She's bidding to become the only manager in history to become Manager of the Season on 3 occasions. And, well, my money's on her because she's the only one taking part. But we're going to roll it over to give Sarah a chance to earn more points. It's going to be worth 3 Manager of the Season points if you can tell me which current Family Fantasy Football League manager is pictured there. And you get a bonus point if you can tell me which part of the body it is. That is the end of the Manager of the Season series. You now all know your enemy. You have less than 5 days to get your teams in. 7 managers have currently submitted their team. 13 managers are still procrastinating. I don't know why, because you can change your team as often as you want up until the 14th of August, Thursday, the 14th of August at 9 p.m. That is the deadline for submitting your team, and your team has to be received at FFFL HQ by 9 p.m. on Thursday. Doesn't matter when you send it, it needs to be received by FFFL HQ 9 p.m. If it comes through 1 second past 9 p.m, or even later than that, then you will start the season with the allocated team, which is documented on the Teams tab of the updates I send out. No need to leave it to the last minute because you can change your team as often as you want. It will probably be a couple of weeks now before there's the next Banter in the Box, the game week 1 review, because the season starts next weekend. Obviously, Community Shield counted towards the points today, and Spurs are playing in the Super Cup on Wednesday. That counts as per the rules to the Family Fantasy Football League, but the Premier League season starts on Friday. Game week 1 will run from Friday to noon the following Friday. So it'll be 2 weeks before we do the game week 1 review. So remember, you only get one guess. Sarah knows it and no one else is playing, but just in case anyone decides to have a go, you only get one guess at the Who the Fuck Is That, so don't go too early. You've got a couple of weeks to ponder it. Until next time, goodbye everyone.